This was a lot of fun. So yeah, talking about the game, any questions, spam them in the chat. But my first impressions of now, what do I have in game? All right, so 9 hours between yesterday and today. Of those, I would say the first 3 were really big learning curve. You know, trying to figure out the controls. It was, I would say, the biggest downfall of this game when it comes to a lot of the initial reviews that are on the negative side is that the hook, you know, kind of what I said in the middle of the stream, the hook is pretty bad and the controls are really not intuitive. So to a new player coming into the stream who's trying it out for the first few hours, it's going to feel like, what the heck, this is pointless, this is boring, it's just too confusing, right? And there's not a good enough hook to, you know, catch them even regardless of the control thing, you know, like, even if just the hook of the game was better, it was like, oh, maybe they'd want to stick around and learn it a little more. But so that's thing number 1. Diving into the game, they definitely fall short on the hook and the controls and sort of the intuitive nature of the game. Unfortunate, because I think actually after playing it now for about 9 hours, I'm really coming to enjoy it. I really like looking around the world. I like doing lots of little things. I think it's a very chill game. Yes, there are some of the boss fights which are true challenges and you have to sort of upgrade for them, but it's not rushed. There's no like ticking clock or anything. It's very, you can play it at your own pace. There's no need to rush it. And if you're just there to, you know, take in the beauty of the world, do the exploration, rather than trying to think, oh, we're going to have action-packed boss fights every 5 minutes with a crazy good story, because it doesn't have that. It's definitely very much a jack-of-all-trades style game. It's trying to combine lots of different things, and sometimes doing a good job at it, and sometimes not. We have a main storyline, which we do. It seems fairly clear and straightforward so far, of what we need to do when, how we need to switch the quests, how we get back to the main storyline from side quests. So once I got used to the controls, once I got over that initial like learning curve and that initial hurdle, I'm finding it much easier now. Now I can focus more on the game and the enjoyment rather than that initial like, this feels really janky. With that said, you know, I do think the game still won't be for people who are expecting sort of the high action and really in-depth story style. I kind of like this whole like medieval steampunk fantasy GTA feel that it's got going on with it. I like having, you know, one moment where I'm in the peaceful meadows, I mean getting someone's sheep, another moment you're doing a big boss fight surrounded by 100 plus NPCs, another moment you're in the sky solving, you know, crazy puzzles that are, you know, literally a whole different world up there. You know, and then like not to mention all the other regions and biomes of the game and all kinds of things. Some people are like, oh, that doesn't fit, you know, they can't wrap their head around it. I think if you're going into this game trying to wrap your head around it, trying to like have this narrow view, like I need to be handheld and guided through a sequence, it's not going to be good at all. And that's where I can totally see and justify the hate that the game's getting as well, because for players that have gone in blind, the hype definitely looked pretty good. It definitely caused a lot of expectations, and so for people who didn't do a lot of upfront research, who didn't look at a lot of the early access reviews, are gonna come in and be like, I don't know what to do, like this is not what I was expecting. You know, I watched a lot of those reviews going into this and still decided, I was like, I was ready to learn it. I had a gap in my schedule where I could stream this a bunch for a bit while I'm waiting on some updates for other games that I do on the channel. And so I think that's my biggest takeaway so far, is that after the first few hours, it does start to open up more and it does start to get interesting. But don't fully rely on that. Still be okay with just exploring a beautiful world. It's fascinating to me. The tech that they have in this game is very cool, and that's something I've been very curious to check out. So that was a big, you know, selling factor for me, and it definitely is delivering on that. Initially, I did not like the performance yesterday with the GPU just heating up, especially as a streamer, because I still have to stream and have, you know, I can't be cooking my GPU 24/7. You know, I know it can handle it, but we figured that out, and I posted a video earlier today on optimizing it for NVIDIA. So after figuring that out, today's stream went crazy smooth and my room is not as hot, and I will definitely do this again. Like, now I can see myself like, okay, I got the performance under control. They really need to tweak the UI. They really need to tweak the controls, the settings, the in-game settings for performance. But if they can do that, which it sounds like they might, I think it has a lot of potential to keep getting better. It's just too bad that the initial launch, especially for a finished game that's $70 nearly, it could have done way better for the initial launch. Aspects of it were definitely designed by gamers, you can tell. And then other aspects of it were like, you hire a Fiverr and don't even give them a background. And it's like, they just don't, it doesn't, that's the jankiness I feel from it that I had to get over. And press, they seem very, quite responsive to feedback. Yes, they did post a post on Twitter the other day, 2 million sales. They were like, yeah, we're grateful for the feedback and everything, and we're trying to do the best we can to make as many updates and patches and stuff. Also think people thought it was going to be, like The Witcher 3, and they got disappointed when it's not. Exactly. That's something that definitely is not the case in this game. So people who went into it thinking they're going to get this big, grand adventure like that, definitely the disappointment is there. You know, like I said, I think people going in blind, which I don't blame them. Going in blind is fun. Plenty of people don't want to know what's coming. They don't want spoilers of the game. They don't want to look at the reviews. They want to dive in and hope for an awesome adventure based on purely the trailers or what they've seen of the game and the description, which from that, it was a little bit of a, like, wake-up call, I think, for some. Think of it like as open world sandbox RPG with a lengthy tutorial. Yes. Yeah, and it's more like an RPG than the devs kind of admitted. You know, I think they were like, no, it's not an RPG, which then gave people the sense of, oh, well, if it's an exploration adventure, then I guess the story must be good. I think that was a bit of a miscommunication on the devs' part, because from what I'm getting the sense of this, it's like it's RPG, but a lot of aspects, it's like it wants to be an RPG in some ways, but it's not, because the mechanics just don't fully work as that. And it wants to be a story game, but it's not, because it just doesn't have that story. So it's very much just having an open mind and just realizing, like, okay, put yourself in the shoes of, like, whoever's making this game and, like, what they might have wanted it to be, and play it as the game just wants to be played, and, you know, have a very open mind, have time, be able to just relax into it, get over the learning curve. You know, I think people who don't have patience are going to be like, you know, shit, my inventory's getting full, like, all this stuff is just driving them crazy. I think having patience is key with this one. It is not hand-holding whatsoever. Saw a review that it's like an MMO, but make it solo RPG. Kind of, you can tell they set it up as an MMO initially, you know, with all of the NPCs and liveliness and the size of the world and things. It does sometimes feel like, oh, it could be really fun to have big, in-depth adventures with a friend. You know, it sometimes does give off that feeling of, like, longing for more. You know, I definitely have those aspects of, like, oh, I see the potential, but, like, you know, so I'm willing to step back and admire it. There's a lot of things about a lot of games that I wish were all just combined into one awesome game, you know. If I was a game dev and I could snap my fingers and create the perfect game, of course I would, right? But everyone has their own ideas, their own ways of implementing things, and I wanted something different from my survival classic RPG building games, something that I could be more just like, yeah, taken aback by and just like not have to come up with building plans every day and just get to relax a little. I think that's what this game is really good at. As far as bugs go, you know, like actual bugs that I've experienced, there are definitely a lot of graphics bugs depending on your settings. A lot of them can be solved with your settings. I had none of those today, for example, after my new settings that I did this morning. But yesterday, when I was playing, I had a bug where whenever you would learn a new skill, stuff was flickering all the time. I had a bug where whenever I would die, I couldn't press the... And that was happening a little today at the vendors, where I had to use WASD and spacebar when I should just be able to drag my mouse. It kind of idles the game, and then you can't press the thing, so I had to, like, Alt-Tab out of it, and then that fixes it each time. Nothing game-breaking so far. Visually stunning. The wind needs to slow the fuck down. The grass is just way too fast all the time. I think wind is just fine. I think it looks great in certain areas and certain times, but when you have it being super windy 24/7, it kind of is like that one little thing that's like, slow down just a little bit. Sorry if you answered. What do you rate the gameplay so far? The gameplay, purely going off of that word in your question, like a 6.5 or a 7. Maybe that seems low. Out of 10. Maybe that seems low, but if we're talking about the gameplay, and I think of even just Enshrouded, which isn't even, it's not even made as a adventure story game. It's a survival building game, first and foremost, but it's got such a good quest and storyline and a lot of fun stuff to do. It's got great combat, great locations, tons of exploration, loot and chests that could be more rewarding and things. You know, there's definitely aspects of that, but I look at this game and its sole purpose is to be that, you know, that sort of questing game where you're doing things. And I think if I'm being 100% honest, they took a beautiful world, it is gorgeous, and used it as a cover-up to not have quite as engaging gameplay. That said, though, I think the gameplay is good. I think it's just less of a priority for this game. It's more of it feels a bit of a side thing instead of a central thing, and which to me is okay. I enjoy this beautiful world being the center of this game. You know, this render distance, the crazy inspiration I can get from some of these buildings and landscapes and structure to go build in another survival game. Overall rating on the game after today, I'd probably give it a solid 8 or an 8.5 of like overall game. You know, gameplay itself though is the lower part for me. World, like 9.5, 10 out of 10. Love this world. Me personally, there's something very comforting about this game. Yeah, definitely not for everyone. If you give it a chance, you're bound to fall in love with it. I would agree. I would say that's more my review for my personal review. I think, yeah, some of the earlier remarks, it's like if I'm looking at it from an objective perspective of what I think it could be, what I think it is, I'd say for myself, that's what I'm getting out of it. I'm not getting the crazy adventure and dopamine hits out of this game that I think some people were expecting. I'm not getting any of that at all. I'm actually getting a very relaxed, like, let's just sit down and chill for a few hours vibe. I can stop at any time. I have so many like checkpoints, fluidity, and you know, like the overall just flow of the game, even though it's janky and has all these bits and pieces going on, still feels, to me at least, not too confusing. And I can look at it and be like, oh, this is just a relaxing, beautiful open world. That's where I'm playing the game coming from. Just enjoying it and trying not to speedrun it. Exactly. Yeah, highly disagree with their choice of non-standard controls, but yeah, you eventually get over it, unless you're one of those people that just looks for something to complain about. Yes, I do think a lot of the hate on this game is getting to the point where a lot of people, like Isaac said earlier, were complaining about tiny little things, like some of the paintings in the buildings being generated by AI, probably. You know, like it's little things that are definitely going to increase the volume of hate, because, let's face it, a lot of people like to focus on the negative. I'm guilty of that too, and a lot of things in life, right? We focus on that. And so if there is, it's going to be everywhere, especially on the internet. So that's my thoughts on the general gameplay after about 9 hours. And we'll see how it keeps progressing. But yeah, we've done the boss fight at this point. We've got a hang of more a hang of the combat, how some of the stuff works. I think just the non-standardized approach to this game really throws some people off. And I think that's tough, and it's got a lot of hidden gems, and I'm all for it. So I want to keep continuing and exploring